morning back in the UK, so it's that silly time of day for me because it's afternoon, but it's morning for you. But then again, it's maybe afternoon when you're watching this video. Anyway, Bosun Lawwell to Birmingham on loan, and I'm going to tell you exactly why it makes sense in this video. There are a few people online at the moment. There's currently 13 people online as we just do an abrupt early morning, early afternoon live. Let me just check this. Let me just check. There we go. All right. So, Bosun Lawwell to Birmingham City on loan. Paul Baird is in the house. Afternoon, morning to you, Paul. Evan Shaw, for fuck's sake, tell him there's no option. I'm going to tell you why. And everyone's clambering about getting Bosun Lawwell into the team, and even I have been as well. But I think I think there is a good reason why you might go to Birmingham, and I'm going to tell you what. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to name some players that Celtic have to get rid of before Bosun Lawwell can be in that Celtic team on a regular basis. There are players at Celtic who you would say are in the squad before him, before Bosun Lawwell, and I'm going to name the players that need to leave Celtic before Bosun Lawwell can get in a match day squad. Now, Bosun Lawwell is an Irish defender with Nigerian heritage. He signed for Celtic on the 16th of July 2021, and his contract expires at Celtic on the 31st of May 2026. So he still has 2 years left on the current contract. Celtic's current market value of the player is £300,000, and €300,000 it's saying here. But the player who could play both centre backs positions, and he can also play right back, which we've got enough cover for, but he can also play centre midfield, which he excelled at last season. Bosun Lawwell excelled in that position last season, but there is a massive but. Let's look at the Celtic current squad of midfield players. We've got Odom Ohm, and unfortunately James McCarthy is still in that squad. And then we've got Kwon. We've got Tomoki Iwata, Liam Shaw's still in the squad, Matt O'Reilly's there, Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor, and James Forrest is put in as a midfielder also, even though he's more a winger. But let's face it, Callum McGregor, you're not going to knock him out of his position. Rio Hatate and Matt O'Reilly. That's your three starters week in, week out. The players that need to leave, in my opinion, so that Bosun Lawwell can get a consistent run even on the bench, would have to be Odom Ohm. He would be my first choice for leaving, even though he is at a similar age, but I think that Bosun Lawwell has a more physical stature than Odom. Is Odin the type of guy that's going to beef himself up in that midfield player? For me, he just looks a little bit lightweight, and I don't think he can boss a midfield like Celtic really need. You know, when you look back at the Victor Wanyama's of the world that bossed the Celtic midfield, I mean, Bruni wasn't a big guy, but he knew how to boss a midfield. Can Odamon do that? I don't think so. James McCarthy's still there. He needs to leave altogether. And then there's Kwon, who was put out on loan. That's the first three players that need to leave Celtic, I think, before Bosun Lawwell can regularly get a bench seat at Celtic. He's not going to knock the first three guys off. And then you've got Tomoki Iwata. Now, there is big question marks over Tomoki Iwata. Is he as good or is he better than Callum McGregor? Can he hold down that midfield defensive position? Can Bosun Lawwell dislodge Tomoki Iwata from that position on the field for when Callum McGregor is out? That's the next big question. But then there's Liam Shaw. Liam Shaw that's been at the team, at the club for a few years now as well, from Sheffield Wednesday, I think it was. I think he needs to leave the club before Bosun Lawwell can get a first team position. Now, Bosun Lawwell can move to Birmingham. Look who the the manager is. The Birmingham manager is Chris Davies. Chris Davies was Brendan Rodgers' number 2 when he was at Celtic. He was Brendan Rodgers' number 2 when he was at Leicester. He's worked with Brendan Rodgers the majority, quite a long time throughout his coaching career. He's by Brendan Rodgers' side. Putting Bosun Lawwell down to Birmingham to work with Chris Davies does one of two things. It puts them to a player, it puts them to a manager that Brendan Rodgers know, likes, and trusts, and knows that they will develop the player into an even better football player. They put them down to Fleetwood Town last season to work with Scott Brown so that Scott Brown can develop him at that level. Now, is he ready for first team football at Celtic? Well, you can't really go against Ayr United. I mean, you can't put him on against Ayr United and say, like, is he that good? Is he SPL standard, SPFL standard? Can he walk into the first team at Celtic? There's all these question marks that are still out there. For me, putting him down to Birmingham is a higher level than obviously playing, and it's a bigger club than playing at Fleetwood Town. Putting him down to work with Chris Davies, Brendan Rodgers is still going to be in contact with Chris Davies on a regular basis. He was a good player in a bad Fleetwood Town team, although they had Charlie Adam as manager. Putting him at Birmingham, I think, could bring him on that little next step further forward in his career. Brendan Rodgers has always spoke about the fact that players need to go on a journey. Players need to learn the game, and they have to be prepared to go out on loan. Not every player can come into the Celtic and just walk straight into the first team. There's many outcasts and there's many project players that are currently at Celtic that haven't done that. Bosun Lawwell was bought to Celtic via West. It was Watford actually. Watford. He was at St Kevin's Boys as a young player. He went to Watford and the Watford under 18s. Celtic seen him at Watford at under 18s. They paid 300 grand, I think it was, for him, and then they put him out on loan to Fleetwood. It is all about this guy's journey. It is a player that still has 2 years left on his contract, and I think that would be an excellent next move for Bosun Lawwell to try and get first team football. Chris Davies isn't going to take him down there if he doesn't think he's going to put him in the first team. Chris Davies isn't going to take him down there and say, look, he's not going to get in the first team, Brendan. But Brendan will make sure if he goes out on loan, it'll go somewhere where a manager and that he thinks can bring him on, and he knows Chris Davies inside out, and he knows that if Lawwell does go there, we can get him back at any time, and I'm sure that would be even more advantageous to us. Anyway, let's jump into the comment section and see what you're saying in the comment section this morning / afternoon. Evan Sean Lanky's in the house. Good morning, Lanky. Gary Boy's in the house. Hail, boys and girls. Evan Sean for Taylor, there's no option. We'd love him to get some game time, but I reckon we could use him. But Evan Sean, you've got all these players. We've got all these players that are in front of him. Odom Ohm, Kwon. Fair enough, Kwon went out on loan, right? You've got Tomoki Awasa. James McCarthy's sitting doing nothing. But then you've got Liam Shaw. Now, Liam Shaw will probably get put on loan again. But he's never going to knock Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate and Callum McGregor off that perch. He's not going to knock them off that perch in that midfield. So we have these other players that are on lengthy contracts. Odom Ohm's going to be at Celtic for a while. Tomoki Awata's still going to be here. Kwon might get put on loan. There is 3 players that if they get moved on this summer, if Liam Shaw gets moved on, McCarthy gets moved on, and Kwon gets moved on, yes, by all means, keep Bosun Lawwell, Mohammed Bosun Lawwell is his full name, keep Mohammed Bosun Lawwell in the squad and use him. But for what I am thinking is to get his football to the next level in his career, put him out on loan down to Birmingham with the option to bring him back at Christmas, put him down in Birmingham on loan and make sure that he's going to go through the next period, his next progression period. And that way, we know when he comes back to Celtic, he's played at a pretty decent level. Anyway, Chef Scottish, morning Plymouth boys, hail hail. Morning Fraser says hail hail. Sean says, my local team, be good to see the big man in real life, says Sean. Michelle says, good morning, Baz and Phil Sims. Have a fantastic day. Evan Sean says, as long as we get him back, couldn't do him any harm getting down the south. It's above Fleetwood. Exactly. And that's what I'm thinking. And I don't know that this is going against the grain, against what everyone else is thinking this season. But I'm just thinking Brendan Rodgers might actually be thinking about this because him and Chris Davies are like that. They have that connection with each other, and it's a better level of football. And then, it's the next. If he's going to come back to Celtic and he's going to be a Scott Brown type player in that midfield, that he's going to boss the midfield, he has to go out and play at a higher level before he'll come into Celtic and do that on a regular basis. That's my thinking behind it, and it's good to get all your comments as always. AliBoy1888 says, "Good morning, Baz. Hello. I thought we were looking forward to seeing him this season. Now we're loaning him out. But Ali Boy, that's just what I've spoken about in the video. How much game time is he going to get this season at Celtic? How much more progression is he going to get as a player sitting on the bench and maybe not even making squad games? Maybe not even beating squad games. Unless Celtic have a massive clear out this summer, Bosun Lawwell isn't going to get near the bench, unfortunately. That's the realistic way that I'm looking at it. When you look at the midfielders that we have, I mean, we're just going to go over it again. But he's never going to get rid of Matt O'Reilly, Hattati, and Callum McGregor. And there are other people that are on the bench that need to leave Celtic first of all. Anyway, let's dive back into the comments. Stuart Ramsey says, "Morning, Lanky. In my opinion, just moved. This season, we'll see Ohm, Kalmak, and Rio in midfield." Lanky, well, there you go. I'm saying that Owen would need to leave Celtic before Bosun Lawwell would even get in. Birmingham have been rotten for a few seasons. Let's hope it's not detrimental to his development. How long has Chris Davies been there as manager? Has he not just been in there as manager in the last few months? I'm not sure. Joe Doherty, how are you this afternoon, this morning? A player who can play so many positions, and we put him out on loan. He'll Joe Dock for Little Ireland. If Lawwell does very well in the Championship, I can see our club recalling him in January. Exactly. You have to play him at a higher level than what he's been playing at just now. It's okay saying he done really well down in Fleetwood. Let's face it, anyone could have done really well down in Fleetwood if there were any standard at all. But the fact that Bosun Lawwell is still young and he has that little bit of extra to go. I mean, for me, he's 2 years away from being a first team regular at Celtic. Let's face it, he's 2 years away. He's only 21-year-old. The time you're 23, you're thinking, if you're not back at Celtic by the time you're 22, after being out on loan a couple of times, and then you're champing on the manager's door, you're playing out your skin, I think this season might be a season far too early for Bosun Lawwell. It's just my opinion, and it's only the one Celtic fans' view opinion. That's why we get everyone's opinion on this channel. Catholic Rebel says, but no, Ian says, Baz, for fuck's sake, what's going on, mate? It's just an opinion, Ian. It's just an opinion on how to get the best out of Bosun Lawwell. And personally, I don't think that we're going to get the best out of Bosun Lawwell. Him sitting on the bench the majority of this season is not going to progress as a football player. Put him down to Birmingham on loan for the first half of the season with Chris Davies, who used to be Brendan Rodgers' number 2, the first time round at Celtic. That can bring him on as a player. Then you bring him back to Celtic, a much even better player than what he is already. He needs more games to develop. Celtic can't give him the amount of games needed to develop next season. He'll be ready, says Chris. Exactly. That's my thoughts. Exactly, Chris. I think this season is a season just a little bit too early. Get him signed a new 4-year deal contract and then loan him out. He is contracted out. He is contracted at Celtic until 2026. Bosun Lawwell's contract runs out on the 31st of May 2026. So he's still got 2 years left on his contract. Do you know, the fact that he's been playing in the B team, he's moved on one loan already, another one at a decent level in the Championship will make the player 100 times better when he comes back to Celtic. That is for sure. Next up is Kaiser. Stop being so early, Baz. Lol. Kaiser, I'm going to absolutely go for it over the next couple of weeks. Just wait and see. McCarthy pulling thousands of pounds a week for doing nada. We need him off the wage bill. We do that. We need James McCarthy off it. Lanky says, Kaiser, wake up early then. Kaiser, this is the second video of the day. It is. And there's already one. There's one scheduled for about 6 o'clock tonight that I've recorded already also. And I think you might find that one interesting. It's not as long a video, but anyway, it is what it is. I'm watching up at the crack of 12 p.m. Well, Lanky says, Kaiser out walking the chariot. You've missed half the day already. Barry Smith says, you're spot on, Barry. He's playing in a strong league. Bosun Lawwell can come back halfway through the season better for it instead of him sitting on the bench. He'll get better in the Championship. Exactly. And that's my thinking behind it. You know, I want our young players, I want our players that come through the B team to be ready to walk right into the first team at Celtic. Brendan Rodgers spoke about players last season, youth players, not being ready, but mentally they think that they want to be first team players. And we all know what happened to that. You know, a player went down and joined Watford on a 4-year deal and got 20 grand a week. Let's see how much of an impact he makes down at Watford. If a player really wants to make it to the top level, they'll understand the football education that they need. They'll understand the football education. I think he's had a fantastic football education so far, but I just think it is a season too early. It is a season too early for Bosun Lawwell, and I think that he's not progressed enough. He could progress a bit more by going down to Birmingham on loan with Chris Davies, and if it happens, for me, I'll be happy at that. I'll be happy at that because he's at a good level. And it's like you say, we can put him out on loan for half a season, or we could put him on loan for the full season with the option to bring him back if needed at the next transfer window. Anyway, that's that. Bosun Lawwell, fantastic player, fantastic prospect. And yes, I'm all for one for saying we're buying in players at 21-year-old that aren't ready. Right? This is the way that I see it. We've bought in players the last two summers. We've brought in players at 21-year-old that are not ready for first team football at Celtic. They're not going to push your midfielders out. So why should we do the same with Bosun Lawwell? Why should we hinder his career? Why should we hold up his career? Why should we hold up his football education? Get him down to Birmingham, get him on loan for a season down there. He's still got another year left on his contract after that. Get him signed up to an extension on his contract to make sure he knows he's wanted by Celtic because, let's face it, if he turns out to be half the midfield player that he's got the prospect of being, he's going to be fantastic for Celtic. Anyway, let's get some of the comments before we end the video. It was only going to be a 15-minute live. We're on 16 minutes 32 already. There's only been 283 people all watched the video. But it's just that time of day, isn't it? I should have done this one later on in the afternoon. Might have to do another one about 5 o'clock. Anyway, Kaiser says that it might be good weed. There you go. Hear you, I hope good under Davies. I know we're all bored with the goalkeeper situation, but I hear we're on alert for remaining goalkeeper, says Ali Boy 88. Gerald Johnson's laughing like he says, did you see an ex-Celtic player, Liam Morrison, has left Bayern Munich for QPR? Well, there you go. He never made it at Bayern. Bayern Munich, the German teams are buying up every single young player in the hope that some of them make it, and then they're going to sell them on for big money down to England. But there's always going to be a turnover of players. Chris says, in the future, if we buy young foreign players, we need to keep them at the club. Brought them in from a year ago just to keep develop. I think Bosun Lawwell's been at the club a couple of years now in the B team. He was brought in for the B team. When we buy in 21-year-olds for the first team, it's never going to be a success, in my opinion. Matt O'Reilly is a one-off. He is a one-off. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world, and I shall see you on the next video. And it'll probably